Howdy, guys. Welcome to night 43 of Big Brother All-Stars. This is Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Hope y'all are having a fantastic day. It's Thursday. It's eviction night tonight. But before that, we certainly had a lot of campaigning going on overnight, so I'm going to fill y'all in on all the key conversations. Now, first of all, from a non-gameplay standpoint, but just to let you know, they had feeds down for about 2 hours last night. They had a halfway party. We are halfway through the Big Brother game. Isn't that amazing? So they had a little party, celebrate. Apparently, some people had some beers and such, and had a fine old time. But beyond that, some of the conversation, we got a lot of them, so let's get right to it. First of all, in the HOH room, this is a little bit before the party, but in the HOH room, Ian and Danny are talking. Ian is saying that Memphis told him earlier that he is voting Ian out. Simply because Ian is smarter, he's a big threat. Danny is saying Memphis's vote doesn't really matter, Ian. It's just one vote. But Ian is saying, yeah, but I figure if Memphis is voting that way, then Christmas is probably going to vote that way as well. So that's 2 votes against me right off the bat. So he's starting to get a little nervous as he hears about all these votes coming in. All right, also in the HOH room, this is Ian and Christmas talking just a little bit later. Ian is saying that, hey, Kevin and David are my targets if I stay Christmas. I'm not coming after you. I'm not coming after your friends. Kevin and David are my targets. At the time, I wasn't sure if that was the case or not, but the way Ian has been talking throughout the evening, he's not real happy with them. So it very well could be that Kevin and David may indeed be who he would shoot for. Christmas is saying that, she's saying, well, that's all fine and dandy, but here's the thing, Ian. David told me that you had been throwing out my name as a potential nominee before I won HOH. What about that? Ian denies it, said, I didn't do that. No. But Christmas says, well, that makes me nervous, Ian, about keeping you in the house. You can understand why. Ian says, look, David is a tire kicker. He's always asking me about who I'm going to put up, wanting to know all this information, and just don't believe everything he says. The conversation ends up with Christmas very non-committal. She just says, okay, good pitch, bye, and really doesn't tell him anything. So a little bit later in the love room, Nicole and Kevin are talking. Nicole is campaigning for Ian. She's been doing a lot of campaigning tonight. She's not really sure why David is wanting Ian out. I think it has to do with what we talked about last night. David feels like Ian is in tighter with the group and Tyler is on the outs with the group. She does ask Kevin, she says, look, would you vote to keep Ian if I can get another person to come in and tell you in front of both of us that they're going to vote to keep Ian as well? And he says, yeah, sure, I'd probably do that. So Nicole says she's going to talk to Christmas. She does this later, and Christmas, again, is very non-committal, says, I got to worry about protecting my long game here, Nicole, and I'm not sure keeping Ian is necessarily it. So I think the Christmas is going to be a tough one. We all know that, but, she's verbalizing it tonight as well. In the love room, Tyler and David are speaking. Now, this was kind of a big conversation for the evening. Tyler's trying to get David's vote. This is right after they have the halfway party. It is not a good conversation. The words get very heated very quickly. David starts criticizing Tyler, saying, look, you didn't do enough to protect Bailey. You knew I wanted Bailey to stay last week, and yet you didn't protect her. And I really think you're responsible for her going home. And Tyler doesn't want to have any part of that. But he's also telling Tyler, saying, look, you don't even talk game to me. Yeah, we talk every once in a while, but you don't come to me. You don't come and ask me things. You haven't talked game. And Tyler kind of says, well, that part may be true, but look, man, he said, I've always had your back. Even when you were screwing my game up, telling people things we'd said, and everything, I still had your back. And yet now the night before the vote, you're suddenly telling me that you don't know what you're going to do. So Tyler's very upset, using a lot of curse words, more than I'm used to seeing from Tyler. David isn't real happy as well, gets very heated. It ends with no commitment from David. He doesn't say if he's going to vote to save Tyler or vote him either way, but it ends up worse than it started out with when they walk out of the door. So that's not real good from Tyler's game point. In the HOH room, Danny and Davon are talking. Davon is asking Danny, she says, are you going to use the power? Now, remember, Danny has the power that lets her play in tomorrow night's HOH competition if she wants to. Apparently, Davon found out about it today. I thought maybe the whole house knew, but later tonight, Kevin was really prodding Davon for information because he knows that she knows about someone else who has the power, but Davon wouldn't tell him. She said, nah, you're going to spill the beans. I'm not telling you. So not everyone knows, but Davon knows now that Danny has this power. She asked if she's going to use it. Danny says, no, I don't want to be HOH again. Look how bad this one went. I'm not really in a big hurry to be another HOH. I will believe it when I see it. If you intentionally don't try to compete and win an HOH, as tight as everything is right now is important, you got to play. I think Danny's going to play this. She has to, right, guys? All right. Another conversation. This is in the living room. This is Ian and Cody are talking. Cody is suggesting, let's just call it what it is, lying, that Ian has his vote. Says, sure, man, I got you. I got you. Well, we know that's not the case, but he says, I got you, Ian. Ian is pointing out what he has recognized as the crux of the problem tonight, in his opinion, is that if he gets Cody's vote, he probably loses Davon and Kevin's vote. That any votes he gets, he's going to lose other people because they don't want to be voting as a block. The reality is everyone seems like they're leaning towards voting Ian out, and they may not realize it. But Ian's thinking, if I bring in Cody, then suddenly Davon and Kevin won't vote for me, so how do I handle those two? He tells Cody, says, look, maybe don't tell anyone until right before the vote. Maybe an hour or so ahead of the vote, tell Enzo what you're doing, make sure Enzo's on board, but don't tell Kevin and Davon that you're voting this way, or else they're not going to vote. They're just to spite you. They're going to vote to send Tyler home, they're going to vote to send me home just to spite you. So please don't tell anyone. So it's very tricky for Ian. He's not real sure how to handle this conflicting sides and such. All right, in the key room, Cody, Danny, Nicole, and Memphis are talking. Danny is again cautioning Nicole to not give Ian a pity vote that could force a tie. She says, if you do that, if you throw me under the bus, I'm going to be really upset. That's going to be horrible. Nicole is all worried, though. She says, well, it may not be a tie vote. This could be a unanimous vote. If it's an 8-0 vote and Ian knows that I didn't vote for him, she says, it's going to be horrible. He's going to tear things up as he walks out. Well, maybe I could give him a pity vote. They're saying, no, can't do that. She says, look, so what you have to do, Nicole, you have to make sure that Davon, Kevin, and David all vote him out. If you vote Tyler's way to vote him out, if you do that, it's not going to be this 8-0 vote, and therefore it looks fine. But you have to do that because you cannot cast this pity vote. Danny's becoming upset at Ian's threats to Nicole, saying, "Oh, if you vote me out, you're never going to get my vote in jury house," and really being very forceful with Nicole on her vote, and saying that also they're upset that Ian is saying, I'm not going to jury. If I got voted out, I'm not going to jury. Yeah, I got to say I'm a little upset with that as well. You sign up to play the game. You can't expect that you're going to win every time. If you go to jury, you do what you have to do. All right. So upstairs in the lounge, Ian and Nicole are talking. Again, Ian's campaigning all over the house tonight. Tyler, not so much, a little bit, but mainly Ian. Ian's talking to Nicole. Nicole is saying, look, Kevin and Davon don't want to vote for you because they don't want to do what Danny says or vote against the house. And they're thinking that Danny is voting out Tyler and that the rest of the house is maybe voting out Ian. I don't know, it's a little confusing as well. But the crux of it is Nicole is saying Kevin and Davon don't want to do what Danny's doing, and they think Danny is voting to keep you. So they're tempted to vote the other way just because of that, Ian. Ian is again pointing out that it's so hard. If I get some votes, I lose others. Ian ends up telling Nicole that the same thing he basically told Cody. He said, look, Kevin and Davon can't know that I have Cody's vote already. Well, he doesn't really have Cody's vote, but he thinks he does. He says, don't let Kevin and Davon know that Cody's voting for me. All right, in the key room, Memphis and Christmas are speaking. Christmas is upset that she has discovered that information that she gives to Danny immediately gets all over the house. Danny just spilled his beans everywhere. So she says, I'm not telling Danny anything anymore. Memphis says, keep notes on this. If you ever need to call her out for this and have some justifications, just keep this in mind. So, people are a little upset with Danny trying to play both sides, talk to a lot of people. Christmas is suggesting, I don't think it's that serious, but she's suggesting, say, hey, we should make sure the vote is a 4-4 tie just to force Danny to choose and get a little more blood on her hands. Memphis says, yeah, that'd be great, but I think it's going to be a sweep. I think it's going to be an 8-0 vote at the end of the day on this thing. All right, so meanwhile, in the HOH room, Ian and Danny are speaking. Ian is thinking that he has Kevin and David and Cody and Enzo, and Danny has promised to break a tie, so he thinks he may have the votes. But Danny also has told Tyler very vocally and very very forcibly that I will break the tie in your favor if it ever came down to it. But Danny has said, Ian, I don't think you actually have Kevin and Davon based on what I'm hearing. And Ian is saying, no, the votes are there. The votes are there. He says the only absolute is I know I don't have David's vote. There's no way I've got his. Well, as we'll find at the end of the evening, that may actually not be the case. That may be the one vote he does have, or one of very few that he has. All right, so in the HOH room now, it's Ian and Nicole talking. Nicole is saying, look, if I'm the only vote to keep you, it's going to kill my game. It's going to make me a huge target. If it's obvious that the House is going the other way, that I don't have the other votes to keep you in, can I pull back my vote to protect my own game? And he says, no, I want your vote. Even if everyone else is voting the other way, I want your vote. Come on, Ian. I'm team Ian, but yeah. Nicole has to play her game. You can't hold it personally if that's happened. But Ian said, no, I want your vote no matter what, Nicole. I'm not letting you slip out with that. So in the comic room, Nicole and Christmas, they're both agreeing that Danny really screwed up by putting Tyler on the block instead of Davon. If it had been Davon, she would have used the veto on herself. Kevin would have still been on the block, and they could have sent him home. They're thinking that she screwed up. Danny knew what she was doing. She said, I just, heat of the moment, quick decision. I got under pressure. She knew what she was doing. But anyway, Nicole is also saying that Ian's bad attitude towards her, it's really making it easier for her to go ahead and do what she needs to do, which is to vote out Ian. So Ian's not helping his cause by holding Nicole's feet to the fire. All right, in the HOH room, Danny and Ian are now speaking. Ian has a lot of conversations, right, guys? They're now speaking. Ian is thinking that David may vote to keep him. Danny is saying, absolutely not, absolutely not. So earlier, Ian said, the one person I don't have is David. Now he's thinking, maybe David does have my vote, and he may. And we'll talk about it in just a second. Ian is telling Cody and Enzo, meanwhile, this is in the living room, he's telling Cody and Enzo that he's going to stay up all night with David if he has to, until he gets his vote. He's not going to bed. He's going to really work on David going forward. He's asking Enzo, he says, look, if I get David's vote to keep me, do I have yours as well? He thinks he already has Cody's. Do I have yours as well? Enzo doesn't really give an answer to it. He just says, love, see what you can do. So in the love room, Ian and David are talking. Another very interesting conversation. Man, Ian is putting the pressure on David. He's saying, look, here's the thing. I'm promising you final 3, if not final 2, if you will work, if you'll keep with me, if we can work together. I want to work with you. You'll see it on the feeds when you get out of here. Final 3 for you, David, and maybe even final 2. He's saying that, David, you'll win in a heartbeat if you're up against me, because no one's going to pick a previous winner to win again. He's saying if you don't have a final 2 with someone right now, David, then you are way behind the curve, because every other person in this house has a final 2, and it's going to hurt you if you don't. You've got to have someone. He tells David that, David, you remind me of myself when I played last time. And I was playing with Boogie. He was the mentor. I was the newbie. It's the same way with us. And I won. And you can do the same thing, and I'll be so happy for you. David eventually tells him, says, okay, you got my vote. And he says, and I'll tell Enzo this, but please don't tell anyone else. So he walks out the room. Ian's very excited. He says, you still got it. He's dancing away, very excited. I don't think it's going to go the way you think it is, Ian, but we'll see. All right, in the have not room, Davon and Tyler are talking. Davon says she knows Tyler has at least 5 votes. Davon, Enzo, Kevin, Cody, Memphis, maybe David. Tyler's not so certain of that, and I think he's got a lot more than that. In the bathroom, Davon and Kevin are talking. Kevin is saying that he knows now that Enzo, Cody, and Tyler are for absolute certain a threesome. They know there's a guys' alliance, which they've been talking about the past few days. All right, in the photo room, Cody and Tyler are talking. Both of them are agreeing that Davon just absolutely has to go next week. They don't trust her. They think she's in with too many people. She has got to go. Tyler also is joking, and I've heard this once before. He said this a day or two ago. Tyler's joking, saying, man, I'm going to act like David is my absolute number 1 just to screw with Kevin and Davon. He talked about yesterday after the vote, he's going to go up and give David a huge hug and say, oh, thank you, my friend, man, I so appreciate it, and try to make it look like he and David are super tight just to pull him away from Kevin and Davon. It's an interesting strategy, isn't it? All right, in the living room, this is the final one. In the living room, David and Enzo are talking. Enzo thinks Tyler will win comps and protect them, and therefore he's kind of leaning towards voting Ian out tonight. David, on the other hand, is thinking Ian will always be a target, and as a result of that, he's kind of leaning towards keeping Ian. Now, I'm sure his little fight with Tyler didn't help Tyler's case anymore, because now David is actually leaning towards keeping Ian. So we'll see. I think prediction, I think I think Ian's going out the door with a pretty large vote. But we'll see. All right, got to get out here. SKD 143. I will see y'all in 24 hours. Cheers, guys.